A lot can change in 12 years. People, society, norms and values, even movies. When we think of a 12-year-old child, we think of someone just beginning to come into their own, growing out of childhood and taking the first steps towards what and who they will be. Similarly, movies have a lifespan. And those middle school years for a movie are when we can re-examine them to see where they've settled into the cultural zeitgeist and determine the trajectory of their legacy moving forward. So join us this season as we guide the movies from 2011 through adolescence, as we ask the question, what are you, 12? Welcome to What Are You 12, formerly I Drink Your Podcast. We are continuing our journey through the movies of the 2010s as we are now on 2011 for our third season.
Whoop whoop.
Thank you for joining us and making this transition with us. Our social media handles are still the same, and you should still be able to find us by searching I Drink Your Podcast, since it is our production company name. Please take the time to like, rate, subscribe, share us with a friend or two. And again, you can follow us on social media at IDYP_podcast on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email us at idrinkyourpodcast@gmail.com. With me today are my co-hosts Emily and Brandon, and before we throw it to them, I have a question for them. What did you want to be when you were 12, Emily?
I'm almost positive that I wanted to be still kind of interested in space, still kind of wanted to be an astronaut. But I think that literally in 6th grade, when I was 12, I distinctly remember going to like this BizTown thing in the Twin Cities with my peers. And I don't know why we had elections for a bank president, but I was 100% voted to be the bank president. And I got to handle all the money. That's why I laughed, you dipshit.
Was it like a normal election in middle school where it was a popularity contest? You were super popular?
Absolutely. There was a mayor election, and then there was bank president. And like we essentially interviewed, basically doing our speeches to our 6th grade class. So dumb. I can't believe that those were like the top 2 positions and we got voted on. And I still don't quite understand how I won because I was such a nerd. Oh my God, I was so nerdy.
Well, that's probably why you won. Bank presidents are nerds, aren't they?
Well, see, here's the thing. I distinctly remember like one of the things that we had to do was make sure and keep track of which businesses had paid their loans back and then give them a certificate at the end. And by the end of it, things were coming in too fast. And so we as a team, meaning me, decided, you know what? If they came in and it looks pretty good, we're just going to check it off.
That's pretty in depth there. That's not anything we were doing when I was that age. Nothing that deep.
It was awesome, for sure.
Brandon, what about you? What did you want to be?
That's what, 6th grade? 12 is 6th grade,
Yeah.
right? Man, I was really into art. So me and some other guys were really big into art stuff. A guy named Mike Fitzgerald, he's the first person who really got me into for real into comic books. So he had a copy of The Dark Knight. So we all read The Dark Knight and lost our minds off of it. Earl Liggins, who went on to be one of my best friends. He's actually a really good artist now. So we were like the 3 artist guys in 6th grade. And there was a couple other people who were really good at art as well. But it's kind of like us. Anybody had a project, we'd be like, oh, we got to get one of these 3 to kind of draw the stuff for us.
That's so cute.
I don't think I was even in that mind space of what I wanted to be. I think I just wanted to be an artist and play basketball, which I wasn't very good at 12. And it's still a toss-up if I'm any good now as I'm older. But yeah, that was kind of it. Like we were just really into art and really into comic books. And so artist was all I wanted to do.
Ben, I hope you have something less heartwarming than what Brandon had.
I have no idea why I wanted to be this, but I know distinctly that when I was 12, I wanted to be an architect. Which, if you know me, I am not artistically inclined at all when it comes to drawing or anything like that.
Are you good at math, though?
I was good at math, and I'm still good at math. I took a lot of industrial tech and like technical drawing classes in middle school then too, because I thought that's what I wanted to do.
And
I realized I just did not have an aptitude for it. So it was like, nope, move on. What's the next thing?
I almost went to college to be an architect. I was really close, but I was like, I suck at math. So I would never. And so when I went to college and I had like my minor was technical graphics. So when I went to college, I failed my minor like the first year I went off to Southeast. I failed the whole thing. So like I was asking the guy, I was like, "Yo, is there any way I can actually like get a C or a D out of this class?" And he just looked right at me in my eyes and said no, and just walked away. I was like, "Well, damn, I can't do any extra credit at all." But the guy next to me never showed up to class. He had a C in it, so I don't know what was going on. So I just stayed in the class. I'm like, "Fuck it, I paid for it. I might as well stay in this class. I'm not going to drop it."
Right.
So I stayed in the class. I took the F. So when I took it my senior year or my last year of college, and it was a different professor, it was the exact same curriculum all the way down to like the projects, and I already had all the stuff. So I literally just stayed in the class, and I just because he was like a grad assistant, or he was like starting to be a professor. He was like a young dude. He was my age because he was like 24 or 25. So like everybody in there I knew already, and they were like, "Yo, Brandon, I don't get how this works." So I'm teaching everybody how to do what I did a year prior in the class, and even all the way down to the final. It was the same. So I literally just sat in that class for like an hour and a half, like I already have the final done. So I'm thinking I'm going to ace the class, right? Everybody around me had A's. I had a C in the class. I'm like, how the fuck I got a C? I got all the answers to everything. That's when I knew I chose the right path to just go into video and stuff. Like I was like, how the fuck does this even happen? Blew me away. I was going to go into that, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, we all ended up finding our purpose eventually. And that
Sure.
kind of leads us into our next movie that we covered this week, which is Hugo. Hugo is currently at 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was nominated for 11 Oscars, including Best Picture, winning 5 for Best Cinematography, Sound Mixing, Sound Editing, Visual Effects, and Art Direction. I really can't think of a better way for us to kick off this new journey than by covering this movie about a 12-year-old boy and film history. So really excited that this is our first one we're doing.
What is it?
It's a wind-up figure, like a music box.
Who built him?
I would think a magician. You see this? A keyhole in the shape of a heart. Another mystery.
I fixed the...
It was fire. You're coming with me.
This movie is directed by Martin Scorsese, who is a 9-time Oscar-nominated director for films like Raging Bull, Goodfellas, Gangs of New York, and The Departed, for which he won his only Oscar. He was nominated for his directing and producing of this movie, and this is our second Scorsese movie that we've done, having done Shutter Island last year. Starring in this movie is Asa Butterfield. By this time, even though he was young, he was already an experienced actor, having starred in The Boy in the Striped Pajamas in 2008, and appearing in other movies such as Son of Rambo, The Wolfman, and Nanny McPhee Returns.
So I see it says Rambo, B-O-W, not Rambo as in like guns and glory.
Yeah, so that's a 2007 movie that I actually haven't seen and that we didn't cover. So I don't know why it's spelled like that, but it is not the Rambo that you think of when you think like Stallone. It's not him.
It is actually not a bad film. I've seen
not.
it. It's actually really good. I was impressed with it.
Okay. Also in this movie is Ben Kingsley. Ben won an Oscar for Best Actor for his portrayal of Gandhi in the movie of the same name in 1982. That was the first of his 4 nominations. He also starred in Shutter Island, so this is not his first collaboration with Scorsese, with Scorsese saying that Kingsley was the first and only choice for this role in Hugo.
Oh, sidebar, if you haven't seen Sexy Beast, he bodies that fucking film.
Sexy Beast is really good.
He's like 5'8", and I was scared of him watching him. Like he was really good in that film.
Speaking of small but powerful, we've got Chloe Grace Moretz also in this movie. Came onto the scene with roles in Amityville Horror Remake and 500 Days of Summer before breaking out in 2010 with roles in Kick-Ass, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and Let Me In. This is a movie that Emily had not seen before, and I am just so excited to hear what she thinks this could have been about.
I'm going more general on these synopses because Ben kept making fun of my synopses. So
It's not.
we're going
I actually
shorter
liked
on
him.
them.
It's funny.
Well, thanks. But we're going to keep it a little bit shorter. I truly did think that this movie was a giant clock coming to life in some sort of magical city and then becomes best friends with a kid named Hugo. And I kind of got that.
Okay. Why'd you go clock? Like, did you have an image that you had already associated with this movie?
Well, yes, I distinctly remember the book in my house in my sister's room. So I'm actually astonished that I never read this or never saw it, but I remember paging through the book and just seeing all the pictures. And so I knew that there was a clock. That's all I knew. And I knew that there was something with children. So I knew more than most people, I think, going into this.
Yeah, you did. Brandon, tell us what this movie's about straight from the back of the DVD cover.
Well, this is what this movie's about. When a wily and resourceful Hugo discovers a secret left by his father, he unlocks a mystery and embarks on a quest that will transform those around him and lead to a safe and loving place where he can call home.
So simple.
So adorable.
Just so simple.
But is
Brandon,
it?
was this the first time you'd seen this movie?
It was. I knew it was a Scorsese film, but for some reason, it just, when I think Scorsese, I think like Boston
Gangster
and the Mafia. I don't ever
movies?
think, yeah. I never think anything else other than that, and I shouldn't do that. But no, I had never seen it before. It's got some all stars in front of the camera and behind it,
Mm-hmm.
but I never watched it.
I was really surprised that this was Martin Scorsese. So I did watch some behind the scenes, and the fact that he did this for his daughter because he wanted his daughter to see a movie, and she's the one that like gave him the book and everything. But this really felt like a Spielberg story to me, and I was surprised he didn't get to it first. It just seems like it has that sort of feel to it, and not what I would expect from Scorsese, even though I've only seen Goodfellas and Shutter Island. But that doesn't really show me Hugo.
I can see that. And you have to know a little bit more about Scorsese to kind of understand why this movie is perfectly suited for him. And I think that comes through with the presentation in the movie around film restoration, because Scorsese is one of the predominant voices for preserving and restoring old films. He started the Film Foundation in 1990, which focused just on that. So this idea that's presented in the book is something that he was already very passionate about. And I think you see that in the way that the film history within this movie and the homages that we see, the way that they are handled so deftly and so on point, because you can watch a scene like the train crash that happens in Hugo's dream, and you can be like, that's almost exactly mirroring the Lumiere brothers, The Arrival of the Train, where the people are, they show the people worried about the train actually hitting them when it's the first movie they've ever seen. You can see the parallels there. You see the parallels between the Buster Keaton movie that he takes Isabel to, where he's hanging from the clock, and later you see Hugo hanging from the hands of the clock. It's all so well handled, and I really think only Scorsese could have handled it in such a way.
Fun fact about the train, that actually happened. Like 100%,
Right?
that is real. That is from a photograph of what actually happened at the train station that they were modeling this after.
Yeah.
What? Crazy.
The other thing is that train crash sequence is something that in the book Hugo talks about being afraid of. Like it's a fear that he has that this train accident might happen again. And one thing that this movie does very well, and Emily, you said you flipped through the book before. After I saw this movie, I sat and read the book one day while I was substitute teaching. It is so well adapted to that book that there are literally drawings within that book that are exact shots that you see Scorsese pull off. And it's really impressive the amount of faithfulness that Scorsese is willing to give to this book, because he clearly adores this book and wants to make a great adaptation for his daughter of it. That it almost follows it exactly. And it's amazing that he's able to do that.
That's really cool. I mean, I definitely got the feelings of adventure and whimsy and nostalgia just from, even though I didn't have any connection to the book, even though I probably should have. Let's be honest, I was 13 or 14 when the book came out. So that was like my kind of book. But I did expect it to have a lot more magic, though. I wasn't expecting it to be more of a historical fiction and like dream sequences. The film part of it came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah.
I really had
Yeah.
no idea that it was going to have some truth to it. Brandon, did you feel like it was going to be a more magical sort of? I mean, it was.
I thought it was going to be heavy on the magic side when I first saw the because I don't know how it was marketed when it came out, so it kind of felt as though it was going to have like this whole like a majestic feel to it, and it didn't really hit me that okay, they're going to be doing movie stuff until like the little mechanical
Yep.
robot thing makes that, and I was like, oh, I know what that was in film school. I know exactly what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I was like, oh, well, where's this going? I'm like, oh, well, I figured he just made it. I didn't know he just that the main character was gonna, well, not the main character, but Ben's character was gonna be like the one that actually started this whole film revolution. So I had no clue what it was gonna be about, and I definitely thought it was gonna be some like Chronicles of Narnia type stuff. I did not know what it was gonna be.
I mean, especially when they show the cabinet and they're like searching through it. I'm like, this is definitely Narnia. This is what's going to happen. I know it.
And the film has two very distinct halves to it. And you're right. The first half felt like Amelie for children to me. Did anyone else get that feel?
I didn't, but because it's French, I guess so. Yeah, I could see that. The little vignettes.
You also have all of these little side characters, like having their own individual stories, like the inspector and the flower girl, the cafe owner, and the guy who's trying to like get in her pants but is blocked by the dog.
Oh my God. He just sells newspapers and is in love.
Right. But then the second half is this like exploration of film history and these dream sequences and this what is essentially a biopic of Georges Méliès. And how do you think the biopic part of it was handled?
I liked it. I guess to like know what Europe was when they were making films, they were so far ahead of anybody else. And there's like so many films that are like the baseline for films that we've made here in the States. So like if you ever watch Metropolis is basically Star Wars. That's any sci-fi film ever. Metropolis is their baseline. Same thing with I know this is kind of a little further along, probably like after World War One, but Battleship Potemkin. I always butcher the back of it, but just like the sequences in that and everything that's actually done, and to actually lose all those artists and those like filmmakers to something as catastrophic as war, and when they actually get back on their feet, the United States have taken and ran with it. It's become a totally different thing. So to have that history and to see where it all comes from, if it was packaged like that to me in film school, I mean, I was already into it anyway because my dad's a history teacher and I love history anyway. But I think it's to have that and to be able to see that, it would have made me, if I was a kid and saw that, maybe research more about what's more about like European film, because there's so much stuff you don't see being in the States.
This movie absolutely is the one that if I ever got to teach a film studies class, this is the movie I show week one, because it does such a good job of homaging these original movies, the silent film feel at the beginning of the movie, and then also like just giving you an introduction to Méliès, Lumière, Buster Keaton. Emily, have you seen A Trip to the Moon?
I've not seen it, but I do know that when I was watching like the behind the scenes stuff, it's on YouTube right now, which is super fun. It's like an hour of it. It's great. Love it. I heard a comment that someone said that this is so iconic that everyone sees this image and they know that it's an iconic, famous image. Mm-hmm. And so like I had seen that image. I don't know where I had seen it before, but I had. And Brandon, when you're talking about how you would want to research and learn more about Georges Méliès, that was how I felt. I was so fascinated and enthralled with the movie, especially just like him creating the films in ways where they would cut and freeze, and seeing that, like, that's so mundane in my brain now of, oh, obvious, but they made it so it captured my entire soul of just curiosity. And I ended up spending like an hour on the couch just reading about Georges Méliès. It was great. I had a great time.
And when you think about what Méliès did for film, where A Trip to the Moon was the first science fiction film ever made. He also made one of the first horror films ever made. He combined animation and visual effects through his like illusion magic and camera tricks that he was able to figure out. Like, if you watch A Trip to the Moon, you watch it and try to think of how you would view it as you're only 6 years removed from the arrival of a train pulling up to a station, and all of a sudden
Right.
you're in this 15-minute narrative of people on the moon, and it's in color, and things are disappearing right before your eyes. Like, I can't even fathom what I would have felt like as a moviegoer at that time.
Yeah, I've watched Buster Keaton stuff now, and I'm like, how the fuck did he do that shit? Like, there's no special effects, there's no after effects, no final cut, no nothing. They just figuring out how to do stuff and make it look amazing, and it's literally like that third act, middle, second, third act is basically film history.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a director or a filmmaker or a movie that advanced film as much as from it was the Lumiere brothers to A Trip to the Moon? Like, is there something out there that's like advanced us to the point where it made just like a significant impact? I mean, we obviously have really big moments in cinema, but is there something that like truly advanced us in a significant way?
I can think of 3 off the top of my head. The first one is Citizen Kane, because what Orson Welles did with that movie, it was one of the first instances of nonlinear storytelling, which we think of now as just something that's ingrained. Like, we don't expect a story to be
normal now.
Point A to point B straight line.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, it was something new, and he was doing things with the camera that people weren't doing at the time. The other one from around that same time, maybe 20 years later, would be...
Stop. Before you take all of the movies, like, we got to hear what Brandon says too. Come on, man.
Okay,
I can think of
you're
3.
right. Fuck you.
I would say Gone with the Wind definitely did it. Even though it's such a long formatted film, Gone with the Wind definitely did it.
How?
With like the use of Technicolor, the color is so rich.
Oh yeah.
And Technicolor at the time it cost a crap ton to make. Like, it wasn't cheap at all. And then it's this long format film where you have to have like a break in between. I don't know if they were doing films like that long then. So you have this huge epic, and that I believe it was adapted as well from an actual book.
Yeah.
One that definitely comes to mind, and kind of for like different reasons, I would say, and I when I was doing a film class, I brought this up, is The Birth of a Nation is the same way. Even though like the actual content and at the very end of The Birth of a Nation, it kind of spawned more the Ku Klux Klan on the back end, which was actually terrible. But you see the power of film influencing people, and I think that was a particular type of film that kind of like spawned a whole bunch of really bad things as far as the South goes. But it was one that I think a lot of people watched at that particular period of time. Then me just being a black guy, blaxploitation films were huge for black filmmakers, because now it's saying that okay, kind of had what the Black Panther has. It's like it has that effect to where, like, if you make these particular types of films, like, and we see ourselves as being black and brown people in different types of films, we're going to go out and we're going to pay for that. And so like our dollar is just as important as anybody else's. So like those probably 3, and they're not as, you can say kind of films, but just like eras in actual film are really, really, I think, influential as far as
a more social concept, like, or a more socially aware of how films impact people.
Right. Because I mean, like it's as far as being behind the camera and having the whole cinematography and the editing and stuff, it feels like when the technology gets there, then it's always going to be good.
Right.
Just like Avatar, like, he waited a ton of time to actually do the first Avatar until technology caught up to do what he wanted to do. Like the technology is going to come, but I think when you have certain films, like, gosh, even like Jaws, when you have certain films like that kind of like bring people together and you create a new baseline, I think that is just as, if not more important than any new technology that comes along, like any new cameras, lenses, lights, it's just that influence upon the masses is what actually
So
I
the
think
story
makes.
itself and how it impacts society. What were your other two, Ben?
The second one I had was Stanley Kubrick with 2001: A Space Odyssey. I feel like just the breadth of what he tried to cover narratively in that, and the emphasis on visuals without a lot of explanation.
I'm so excited when I get to see that.
I feel was very transformative to where cinema went. And then the other one that I thought of, Brandon mentioned James Cameron with Avatar. I think at that point, the real push for 3D, but 3D done correctly, instead of the upscaling 3D that we see, where a lot of movies are filmed in 2D and then turned into 3D. And you can see a clear difference between those, especially if you went and saw the new Avatar movie and you saw the trailers that were shown before the movie. They didn't look nearly as impressive as Avatar: The Way of Water, because it was specifically shot with those 3D cameras. So that's why the depth looks so much better in those.
All right.
And Cameron really pushed the envelope technologically to take us into like a new era of filmmaking that utilizes that tech to its fullest potential.
So that's actually really interesting because, you know, as you guys were talking, like I felt a little bit about, I haven't seen a lot of those movies, but I felt a little bit that there is the technological advances, but also there is this society goes to a thing and is obsessed with it. You know, like Titanic was a huge momentous occasion for society, and I obviously the ones that you all mentioned too, but it's just really fascinating to think about how that change and that just the creation of new advancements, not only in storytelling, but also technology. I love that you talked about that, just the wonder that came from Georges Méliès with this movie. I loved it.
Well, and the fascinating parallels between Méliès and then specifically Kubrick and Orson Welles' Citizen Kane in 2001 were not appreciated when they came out like they are today. The same thing we see in this movie, where A Trip to the Moon, like Méliès poured his heart into over 500 films over like 15 years. And he thinks that there's none left by the time like he gets to old age. Like, so you think about that, and that's one reason that I really love this movie is I love seeing people who do something extraordinary finally getting the respect they deserve. That is one of the number one things that will always tug at me and get me emotional, is seeing, yes, of course I cried. Community support for somebody like that, it always gets me to cry.
I did a little bit too.
And I watched this with Wesley, and I was trying to hold back tears.
And Wesley laughed at you, right?
Because he's a judgy bitch.
I was at work and I was crying a little bit, just a little bit.
Wow, am I a heartless bitch? Like, I cry all the time. How did I not cry from this? What is wrong with me? I loved it, but I didn't cry at all.
I think for me, it was not only does he get recognition for something that he's done and he's poured his heart into, but there's something about when you can't turn on anymore, and like you could tell he was kind of going through life. He had nothing in him, and when you see somebody turn on, and then like the way he was when he was on stage and he put his hat on, and he went off a stage and they kind of screen right into him actually being the actor. I was like, he's on. You know, and that's a feeling that only certain things that you really love can mimic. And I think to like not have it for so many years and to basically be dormant, and then all of a sudden somebody put a fire on you and you just kick on and everything starts rolling. It's like a beautiful thing to see. So I lost a little bit on that. I wasn't ugly crying, but I had like the welling and stuff. It was like, you know, okay, cool, I'm good. I'm at work. Let me, you know what I'm saying, harden the fuck up a little bit and I'll be straight.
The movie does such a good job too of exploring the themes of purpose and brokenness in people, where it's not just Méliès' character, but it's also Hugo looking for his purpose. You see the brokenness of the inspector, where he's got this knee and therefore he feels like he's undeserving of love.
Actual broken.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's a children's movie. You've got to hammer some of the themes.
Squeaky knees means I can't love.
Hey, I've had 3 of those knee braces before. I completely understood.
Hey, you found love.
What was going on with that? I did. And she carries me up and down the steps when I need to. It's amazing.
I think we should start critiquing this film, and we're going to start with a new segment today. And Brandon is going to talk about some of his favorite shots of the movie.
My favorite shots of the film, and this is going to be, because it's going to sound like I phoned it in, but ironically, it's the opening scene, which I think is, even though there's cuts in there, they try to make it look like really seamless, and it's a really fun scene to watch. And the last scene of the film, where they go through the window and they go around, you see everybody's kind of come full circle, and they end the whole film on the actual little mechanical, I don't even know what you call that, drawing robot. I don't know what you call that.
Automaton.
Automaton.
I'm sorry,
I've been saying it wrong.
So,
automaton. Thank you.
So, like the cinematographer for that was Robert Richardson, who's absolute. He's like an absolute G in this. Like, he's done Platoon, Wall Street, Casino, Snow Falling on Cedars, which is one of my mom's favorite films. Both of the Kill Bills. The most recent film that Will Smith did, Emancipation, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
So just a legend,
OG.
I'm assuming.
And then the editor is just as big a legend as Scorsese is, if not more so, because she kills it. I always butcher her last name. Thelma Shoemaker, but she's done just about every Scorsese film and maybe a couple of other ones. To edit all that stuff together, to have that kind of yellowish sepia tonus kind of look at the same time too, and then to, with all the CGI that they actually use and kind of make it look seamless.
Yeah,
I thought, especially for 2012, I think that's really hard to do in 2012, and they pulled it off amazingly.
2011.
2011.
We're in year 2011, Brandon.
I'm sorry. Did I say 2012? I apologize.
Yeah.
But still,
it's just wonderful. I love it.
For it to be that, over 10 years ago, like, that CGI jump from 5 years sometimes is a drastic jump. For 10, and to still make it look like all that stuff's actually there. It filmed amazingly, shot amazingly. It's a pretty film to look at. It's very pretty.
Yeah, when you can be a cinematographer who's the go-to for both Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino, you're doing something right. Because he did like both Kill Bills. He did Hateful Eight, Django, Inglourious Bastards, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like, this guy, he's a master. And you named my favorite shot of the movie, Brandon, which is the opening scene.
Me too.
Not only for how it's shot, but also just, I love the silent film feel to it, where it's introducing you to all these characters that occupy the train station, and it's all these like little supporting character scenes that you get. And then I love the look of the inside of the clock, and I don't know why, like the look of clock gears too. It's just very aesthetically pleasing to me.
To most people, or they're crazy.
That opening scene right off the bat, it ends the scene and it goes to Hugo, the title card. And I turned to Wesley and I said, well, that's the movie. Like, we don't have to watch anything else. We just saw a perfect little 15-minute silent film.
It was good. It was done amazingly.
Speaking of clocks, we need to talk about the set design.
Absolutely.
Because, like, holy fucking shit. You're absolutely right, Ben. The clocks, the gears, the scene as he's moving through the actual inside of the clock, just how that is shot, like Brandon said, but also just all the pieces are fucking moving. It's just gorgeous. And when you see the actual train station, that is a real set that they created and spent hours upon hours and days fine-tuning, and the detail and the entire structure of it. Just absolutely wonderful. And I love that the scenes that take place in the set just feel that much more rich and developed. You've got your chase scene through the train station, the original one, where the inspector and the dog is sliding all over the place, and we're getting these comedic elements. But it flows so nicely, and the set feels like you're really there.
Beyond that, too, when you leave the train station, you get the recreations of the sets that Melies did in his movies, which are some of my favorite parts, them showing the behind the scenes looks of him kind of making those films. And granted, it wouldn't look exactly like that because he filmed in black and white and painted after. So the vibrant colors that we were seeing in Hugo, as we saw the recreations of those sets, would have been way more toned down, because when you have vibrant colors, they don't show up on black and white film the way you expect. But it was beautiful because it recreated the look that we associate with his films because of the painted style of those frames.
They completely built that glass structure stage to the specifications that were documented in Melies' work. Like, it's an actual working stage. And I'm sitting here going, what the fuck? You actually made this? And obviously I was obsessed with the dragon. Like, that was so cool. Like, the pyrotechnics and stuff. Like, oh my God, so cool. Awesome.
How much did this cost to make?
No idea.
There a dollar?
I think I saw 150 million.
Okay, a lot.
How much did it pull in? Did it? Because I don't remember.
It made money worldwide, so it made more than that.
Huh.
I think generally, I could rant and rave about the set design nonstop, but I will say I felt like seeing the 3D aspects of it and kind of the streets, of Paris, they felt definitely off. But I think that's because I, one, didn't see it in 3D, and two, I think you mentioned this earlier, just seeing it on a 4K screen, those kind of highlight this weird animated feel of the streets of Paris.
I have no doubt that you would have appreciated the look of it more had you seen it in 3D, because even James Cameron, and this is 2 years after Avatar, said it's the best use of 3D I've ever seen, including my own movies. So, I mean, if you got James Cameron saying that, it must have looked really good.
I completely forgot it was in 3D. It didn't. Whatever I saw, it didn't bother me at all. I was like, that's whatever. It looks great to me. Seriously, I completely forgot that was a 3D film.
Similar to the art direction, Emily, I want to call out the color palette of this movie, because this movie is so aesthetically pleasing. I love the oversaturated reds and blues, like the way that Hugo's eyes would pop on the screen was beautiful. I liked all the warm yellows, browns, and oranges that were used throughout the movie. Like I said, I watched this movie with Wesley, so I've got a lot of color reporting.
Have you seen the cover of the book?
I'm sure I have. I don't remember it, though.
Okay, it is blues and oranges and reds and golds. And I think that the feeling that I got from like just paging through the book and seeing the cover of it, it does have that sort of same color tones and appreciation for that. I think they just used that. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe there's more meaning behind it.
No, I'm sure he did. If Scorsese was being so faithful to the book, I'm sure he did take design elements from the book as well. At one point in the movie, Wesley made the comment, there are no blacks in this movie, which I thought he meant black people. And I was like, well, 1931 Paris, there probably aren't many. And he's like, no, dude, I mean, like, the blacks are more like dark blues than black. And we laughed for a good minute about that misunderstanding.
Hey, I think that on a lot of movies, like, so black people just aren't in France right now?
Okay.
No.
I mean, historically, there were supposed to be a lot more black people than they led on to. There were a lot of people that lived in Paris that were not white. So whatever. Anyway, continuing.
I think we need to talk about the score. Emily, did this score resonate with you like it did with me?
I surprisingly was not focusing on the score as much. And I think I was just so blown away by the visuals.
Sure.
Of what I was seeing and the mechanical directions of the different pieces moving, and also just seeing these sets come to life. And, they were using the real films and showing like the different things happening. It was so embedded in there that I don't know why it didn't hit me as hard as it probably did for you.
I thought it was a really great, like, French Parisian score. Like, it reminded me of Ratatouille's score.
Oh, yeah, I can 100% agree with that. Yeah. It felt very French. I was
The
like,
use
I'm
of
in
the French
France,
accordion.
even though we're using
Yep.
British accents, whatever.
Very British.
Wow. I also thought the opening scene did this really good job of acting almost like an overture for the film, because it introduces all of the major themes and motifs that you're going to hear throughout in that first 15 minutes.
Right.
I think it's just very well structured, that beginning.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it really does, like you said, have a silent film feel where it's focused on what you see and what you hear rather than the dialogue, because there is none.
Right.
I think we need to talk about Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah, we do.
Absolutely.
I did. Here's the
God.
thing. My introduction to him was probably like a lot of people's introduction to him. He's for some people he's Borat. For me, he was Algie. For some other people, he's the dictator or whatever or something. He was
The dictator. Yep.
So like, I didn't realize, like, one day I just looked him up. I'm like, man, this guy does all this stuff, dude. Like, this guy's he's a hack, blah, blah, blah. I looked it up. I'm like, this dude studied Juilliard, didn't he? Like, he's like high end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's classically trained.
So when I saw that, I was like, dude, when is he ever going to do anything serious? And like, I really did not super like him until I saw Sweeney Todd. When I saw him in Sweeney Todd, I was like, oh, this guy's actually pretty decent in Sweeney Todd. And then everything afterwards, I'm always on the lookout to see what else he's doing. I've only seen part of the Netflix show called The Spy. I think because he's in that, right? The Spy. I think it's called The Spy.
Spy, yeah.
And like, he's doing something serious. I think I might have saw the first 30 minutes of it, and I was so into it, but something happened. I never came back to it. I'm like, this dude can act. Like, he's really, really good. And I wonder why he doesn't do like that type of stuff. Like, it seems like he does a lot of like comics, even though I know comedy's feels like it's a lot harder. But like, it feels like he could do. I want to see him do something like flat out dramatic, just like hard dramatic stuff on a regular basis.
What did you think of him in this?
I thought he was good. Like, he felt like he was. Again, I've seen some other stuff before I saw this. It felt like he was an actual human being in this, because everything else I've seen is he's been somebody fake. So like, when you see him, you actually see this like range of emotion, and he's kind of like, well, I'm not kind of nervous about stuff, but he still has the whole comedic aspect of it where he's talking about the guy and his wife. So I thought was funny as hell.
Smashes the bass.
But and he was just so like nonchalant about talking about this guy's wife cheating on him. But like, just having that range of emotion, you don't see that when he's doing Borat or he's doing Algie, or he's such a good actor that I really wish he would just do a ton of this really dramatic stuff so people could actually see it. Because everybody, at least in my mind, everybody here thinks he's Borat, and that's it.
I really like a lot of the stuff that he does where it's more of the improvisational comedy where he's just getting people to react. I think he's very good at that. I wish he did more roles like this, because he is the comedic heartbeat of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you take him out, there's nothing funny about this movie for the most part.
So true.
He is so good. The physical comedy, like you said, the conversations he had with the orphan catcher were some of my favorite parts, when you just barely hear him say, I don't know if I should be his godfather, in talking about this orphan catcher's new child. Like, yeah, hilarious. And him acting with the dog, which we got to talk about dog acting.
Oh my God, we got to talk about dog acting. There's so many dogs in this movie.
Oh, his dog specifically, though.
There were 3 of them.
Has just such a...
Yes.
The inspector's dog specifically, though, is the one I want to talk about.
Yes, there were 3 of Dobermans.
Oh, to play that role.
Yes.
Is what you meant. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. Those dogs were incredible.
They were so good. Oh my God. Just the way I can't... Words. The Dobermans. Okay, first off, I know that's supposed to be like a scary dog, but they're so fucking cute. I don't think the dogs were in the books from what I read, but they did add just such a comical element, but also added some stakes to things. You know, it was kind of like that cute buddy cop sort of scenario as they're like running through things and tracking people down and trying to catch all the orphans. You know, just silliness, complete silliness. But the dogs were just so perfect. They were expressive. They were scary sometimes. And they were so cute. So cute.
Yes. And you got to give a shout out to the editor, too, because part of the great dog acting is knowing when comedically to cut to the dog's reaction to things. Like when the guy's getting pulled by the train and they cut to the shot of the dog just watching. Like, that's just a great bit of editing.
I also really think we need to talk about Christopher Lee, because
oh yeah,
I I think that all I want is just more Christopher Lee. I think that he is just so incredible. But his presence and acting in this film, I felt elevated it just a hair, where you could feel this really charismatic, mysterious man in the bookstore. Which, first off, like, let's talk about books. Just kidding. I loved it. It was amazing. But Christopher Lee being in there and just having, he added like a real soul to the movie for me. And I know that's kind of weird to say, but it just added this little extra heartwarming part where I felt really connected to what was happening.
I think the supporting characters in this movie really elevate it beyond just a regular story.
Mm-hmm.
You've got like Michael Stuhlbarg, who does a great performance as the writer of the film history book.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
He is honestly the part of the movie that gets me emotional when he's talking to Melies' wife.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you were beautiful then and you're beautiful now. Like, that really resonated with me. And it's partly because of his performance. But then you also got Richard Griffiths and I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, but the woman who plays Madame Maxine in Harry Potter.
Oh, French lady.
Yes, the French lady.
The only French lady in this movie.
Melies' wife, Helen McCrory, I thought she was phenomenal in this.
Right.
Very, very well done all around from the acting.
Well, we need to talk about one person.
Oh, don't do it.
Oh God, you guys are gonna hate me because I know Brandon
Don't
really
do it.
likes her. I had a hard time believing Chloe Grace Moretz. And it's not that she was bad. I just felt like everyone was better than her. And maybe it's because she didn't do what I kind of expected, and maybe that's what's good about her acting. But at the same time, it just felt like it was pushing too much. Or maybe it's because I just didn't like Isabel, or maybe it's because I just wanted her to just be a little bit more subtle. But I don't know. I felt like her performance stood out in a worse way than everyone else, which is so sad for me.
Do you think it's because she's American?
So I think me in my brain, yes, but it shouldn't, because she tricked everyone. That I don't know why they didn't know who she was at that point. I feel like she had been in a few things, but she tricked everyone and pretended she was British. And then when she was just talking on set, they were like, wait, are you practicing an American accent? And she's like, no, I'm American. Like, what the fuck? So no, I don't think it is, but also I don't know why. Again, I just think it's because everyone else did such a phenomenal job that she stood out as just slightly worse. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, don't hate me.
I think we're about ready to sum up our final thoughts. And before we do that, we're going to do one more new segment. Myself, Wesley, and Dylan, all three worked at the same movie theater together. That's one of the ways that we all know each other in Lakeville, Minnesota. And we were all popcorn sweeps at one point in our life. And I was actually a popcorn sweep during 2011, during this time.
Oh, you were?
Yes, I was. So I was always forced to watch the credits of movies while I cleaned. So I wanted to give a little review, and Wesley and Dylan are going to do reviews also when they're on their episodes of what it's like to try to clean during this credit sequence. So the credits of this movie starts with a French song, a very pretty French song, before finishing with segments of the orchestral score. It's a very calming credit sequence, provides a nice respite from the popcorn hustle and bustle, which the theater I worked at was 21 screens, so you were constantly moving.
Oh, man.
But the music really lacked the drive to get me to clean quickly, so it might have taken me a long time to clean this one up. But also, it's not something that would grate on me over time. Like, it's just very peaceful music to kind of flow through me as I clean. So I give it a 7 out of 10 for the popcorn sweeping experience of these credits.
Okay, weirdo.
Now let's give our final thoughts on Hugo, and we're going to start with Brandon.
It's a very pretty film. It's a very beautiful film to look at. I don't think it is, all the acting I think is relatively solid. Everybody's a kind of low-key a heavyweight. You can say, especially like the kids. I don't think it was bad. I don't know if it was on, I'd watch it. I don't know if I'd be like, oh, let me watch Hugo again. I think if it was on, I'd watch it. But it's not a bad film. It's not what I thought it was.
Emily.
It's a beautiful and wonderful homage to the story and to the book and to the film industry as a whole. I think it might have been a touch too long, but I think that comes from an adaptation of a book, a really faithful adaptation of a book. And I think this is a movie that I would love to show to people. This is not a movie that I would just put on to watch, but this is a movie that I would want to watch their experience of going through it.
So I'm the person that puts together the order of what movies we watch. And what you'll notice if you follow us is that the last movie we cover every season is the Best Picture winner. And the first movie we cover is the one that I thought should have won Best Picture at the time.
Oh my God.
I know
Really?
you guys, I never told you guys that.
No, you never told us that. I mean, I knew the last one was Best Picture, but
I got to go back and look at some of the other
Shit.
stuff then.
wait, you thought There Will Be Blood should have won?
Oh,
Yes,
definitely.
I did.
Oh my God.
And then Social Network last year was first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this movie. It's one that I agree, Emily. I want more people to see because I do think it does such a good job of retelling that point in film history. And I think having that basis of knowledge and understanding about where movies have come from does help shape the way we watch movies now. And I wish more people took the time to watch old movies and really sit with kind of the progression that's happened in filmdom, where you start with these simple narratives and you translate into these spectacle movies that we are seeing now. I love it. I'll continue to watch it. I'm going to try to convince my daughter to watch it. She wouldn't watch it with me this time, but I think I can get her
Wow.
in the next year.
She only likes bad movies, right?
She likes horror movies, like only horror movies. She's like, "Can we watch Krampus again?" And it's like, fuck. No, I don't want to watch Krampus again.
Krampus.
Early on in our show, we were a bit cutthroat in our Battle of Twits competitions. And so now
Yeah,
we're a
we
bit
were.
more lighthearted and we prep even less. So let's do some Twits
Way
light.
less.
Way less prep.
No prep.
What's your favorite idea? Mine is being creative.
How do you get the idea?
I just try to think creatively.
Number 1. Imagine, if you will, with me, Christopher Lee walks up to you as you get to that train station and he has a stack of books. He says that this book now belongs to you and goes to a good home to you. So what kind of book, real or imaginary, is Christopher Lee giving you? He just knows in your soul what you need right now.
Oh, this is kind of deeply personal. Like, what book do I need right now?
Can be
Is that
incredibly
kind of where
silly,
we're
but
going?
sure, whatever.
Oh, I thought he was like, what book did he just give you?
Sure, it could be that too.
I think he gives me Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. You guys know Marie Kondo? Like, I think he just looks at me and he's like, "You're a general mess of a person.
You need
So
this in your
here's a
life."
book to clean your shit up."
101 Reasons Why You Should Join the Dark Side. That's what I think that he would just randomly have and just be passing out to people like pamphlets.
Count Dooku, no.
Dooku in the building. Yep.
Yes. All right. Number 2. You've tragically died in a museum fire. I'm so sorry for your children. We're going deeper now, right?
Jeepers, yeah, we're
But your child has recovered an automaton. What would your automaton draw as a message to your child? Please do something that's not as heartwarming as I'm expecting.
That's hard. That's really hard because all I can think about is heartwarming stuff.
that's really hard.
My dad would just have it be a middle finger.
A middle finger.
Oh yeah, that would definitely be from my dad. 100%.
You had to pull in the kids angle. That
Yep.
makes it way harder.
It's always so hard with his
Why?
kids. It's because it's hard with his kids. Dads are saps, man.
Yeah.
Dads are like, we are the sappiest individuals
Mhm.
ever in life.
I mean, that's accurate because my dad is a huge sap, but he's also an asshole, and I love him for that.
I think for my daughter, it would be a map to the treasure.
Would it be a real map?
No, it's going to lead her to a place and where she'll just have to start digging. And the only thing that's there, because obviously I planned this out, there is a chest there about 6 feet underground. And then in it is going to be a life lesson that just says, like, sometimes the journey's not worth it.
Gosh.
You're such an asshole. This is the kind of shit I was hoping for.
I don't really have one. I think mine would probably be like anytime my son used to get upset, I would grab him, I would say, why so serious? Why so serious?
Just the Joker.
Yeah. All the time, like, why so serious? And then I would go with that Joker, and then I go to like the other Joker. I'd be like, Titan, you are my number one guy every time. So it would be both Jokers. So I'll probably just have like a picture of the Joker. It would make it out. So, and then he'd have to figure out that it's why so serious.
That's awesome. All right, number 3. Do you know that every single story got a happy ending in this movie? Hugo got a home, Isabel got a brother, George got his movies back, Vernon Dursley got with Madame Maxine.
Yeah.
You know, even we had the inspector gets his love and his knee fixed, right?
Mm-hmm.
The orphan boy that got captured and sent to an orphanage did not.
Well,
So, could you tell us a happy ending you want for him? I have one, but I really hope that you guys have a good one too.
I don't want a happy ending for him. He's a fucking thief. I hope they cut his hands off.
Oh God, that is brutal.
Yeah. And he becomes the greatest handless pianist in French history. Psych, it is a happy ending.
Oh my god.
Gosh, maybe he finds a rat that is really good at cooking or something, and he becomes
Oh my god.
Yes.
he
Oh my
becomes
God.
that guy. I don't know.
I love that. I love that so much.
100%. 100% this is a prequel to Ratatouille.
Yes, this is a
100%.
prequel to Ratatouille. I mean, I was going to go more the route that, like, Hugo now has a home, so the clocks are going to stop running. So Orphan Boy somehow escapes and starts running the clocks, but leaves, like, little traps just to mess with the inspector. Just, like, stupid booby traps that, like, would trip him randomly or stick a, like, pencil through the gears, and so he would be stuck hobbling around for a while, or, like, give his dog like the inspector's favorite, or like his engagement ring to his love or something, so that he had to wait for it to poop out. I don't know, shit like that.
Yeah. But he also has no hands. and he's like, the only hands I need are the hands of a clock. That's a line from that movie.
Now let's all agree to never be creative again.
I hate you.
Let's play a quick game before we go. This one's called Hugo George.
Stupid.
Many of Georges Méliès' movies were never able to be recovered or restored. I'm going to give you a made-up title for a Georges Méliès film, and I want you to tell me what that movie was about and include any sequences or effects that you think might have been in there. So this is going to require a little bit of thought. But Emily, your movie title is called A Journey Beyond. And Brandon, your movie title is The Darkest Dawn. While they take some time to prepare, thank you for listening to us today. Again, please like, rate, subscribe, share us with a friend or two, and follow us on social media at IDYP_podcast on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email us at idrinkyourpodcast@gmail.com. We really appreciate you for checking in on us with this transition that we're making to What Are You 12? We are really excited to tackle a bunch of movies from 2011 this year, focusing mostly on those movies that are original ideas, not reboots, prequels, and sequels. We'll still cover some of those in our special episodes, but our primary episodes are going to be original films. So you two have had a little bit of time to think about what your movie would be like. And keep in mind that with our games that we're doing now, the ones that I do, there's going to be a winner and a loser.
Oh,
And
shit.
the
Are
loser's
you
going to get a
serious?
slight punishment. So I'm going to pick which movie I like best and actually want to see. So you guys are
Okay.
head to head here. We're going to start with Emily. Emily, what is A Journey Beyond about?
A Journey Beyond is the story of your daughter going on a journey to find buried treasure. But as she's digging, as she's digging her hole,
Yes.
she ends up getting to a point where she falls in and starts grabbing at a root but her feet dangle and there's a whole city below her. And she drops down and is in an underground city of mole people. She sneaks through, hiding to look to see if she can get back out because it's too far up to climb back. And the mole people jump out and start chasing her. So there's just like a bunch of chase scenes, and obviously there are going to be some adorable worms that like help guide her out and dig through. And so I'm imagining there's like this worm friend of hers that's helping her dig a tunnel out while the mole people have like spears and things running after her. And I think like obviously we have her hanging from the ceiling essentially where there's like a hole and she falls down. So that would be one of the things. But my favorite would be the ending where as she gets to the hole, the mole people jump out from behind her, but the sunlight explodes them in pyrotechnics and she's safe. It says goodbye to the worm who squiggles back down.
Wow. Brandon, you've got a tough act to follow there. That was really impressive.
I really tried to capture the essence of Georges Méliès or whatever.
You really did. Like, I was visualizing it in that like 1920s set decoration that he had. And yeah, there was even the digging part reminding me a little bit of Fantastic Mr. Fox, where they show like the side image of them digging the hole.
Oh, yeah. I definitely forgot that that's a movie that I love, actually. But I'm glad that you brought that up. Sorry. Brandon, go for it.
Okay. Brandon, you got this, man. Your movie is The Darkest Dawn.
The Darkest Dawn. Okay, here we go. World War I, they're in the trenches. Trench warfare above them, and it's nighttime. It's really cold, I guess in France or wherever the actually war front is. There's one soldier sitting there. He really wants to go home. All he keeps doing is thinking about is going home to his family. He's like, okay, the only way I can get out of this is by continuously digging trenches. So he's digging trenches. What he doesn't know is that there, on the other side, there is a medic who is actually trying to find her brother, but they don't know that it's a girl. So he's masquerading as a guy trying to find her brother. The only way that she can possibly she thinks that her brother's on the other side. Digging trenches. So she takes around the trench. They come up and so there's a big explosion goes off. They end up being close to each other. They see each other. He realizes that it's a woman and not a guy. So he goes to draw his gun, but then he realizes who she actually is. That's actually a woman. So they're sitting there in the middle of this whole warfare, bomb stuff going off all over the place. And they have to figure out how they're going to get out. So this is just kind of like deeper and darker. So all I can think of is this dark stuff right now. So it's like, so it's just like, like the regular things, the poofs of smokes and all the stuff, and the people aren't really talking, but you see all this stuff going on. So as they're looking at each other, it's just them, and all of a sudden everything goes quiet. And when it goes quiet, they start to imagine a different time where maybe they met differently and they're not necessarily in this war. And she can find her brother and he can figure out a way to get out. And they end up finding out that maybe they have more in common than not, because they're either on two separate sides. They're like more alike than they are different. They both of them want to escape and go back home to their families.
Are you thinking then that that's like it's like a dream sequence of the two of them like fantasizing of their connections, or is it more of like a non-linear story?
When everything stops and it goes dark, that's when they start into this dream sequence of seeing what probably life could be or should be without the war.
Kind of like the ending of An American in Paris.
I guess so. I've never really seen American in Paris. I've never seen it before.
You know what, Ben? We're just making out movies that already exist. We're that good.
I've never seen American in Paris before.
If you can recall things in my brain that are movie related, that means you've built a very vivid picture to where that was able to trigger that in my head. Both very well done. I think I'm going to give it to Emily today just because of the far more fantastical and very straightforward storytelling that she did. I think is very much in line with Méliès.
Brandon, it's 100% because his daughter was in my movie. It's nepotism, right?
Yeah, she's a Nepo baby for sure.
It's a Nepo baby? That's a thing?
Oh, you haven't heard about Nepo babies?
I have heard it called Nepo.
Some magazine put out an article about like all of the Nepo babies in Hollywood and who their parents are and why they have gotten the advantages that they've gotten.
Huh.
Jeez.
My daughter did not get a spread in that magazine yet, but she will get one. Brandon, the next movie you're on for is the first of our trailer pick movies. So you're going to have a choice between two movies, and I'd like you to just kind of quick watch the trailers and let me know what movie you would like to watch of the two. So the two movies you have to pick from, Brandon, maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. One of them is called Margaret, which is directed by Kenneth Lonergan.
Sounds familiar.
And the other one is Meek's Cutoff, which is directed by Kelly Reichardt.
I feel like he's going to choose Meeks. Although, your favorite, Allison Janney, as in Ben's favorite, is in the other one.
I do love Allison.
I know you do.
But I love Michelle Williams, too, and she's in Meek's Cutoff. And Paul Dano.
Oh, man, I got to choose between those two. Let me think here. Not that either one of them are bad. It just feels like it's...
Yep, it's just whatever one you're most in the mood for. You're not talking about quality yet.
All right, I roll with Margaret.
He's rolling with Margaret.
Going with Margaret.
Even though I really want to watch that Western, but I'm gonna go the opposite direction, and I'm gonna roll with Margaret.
That's gonna be an interesting watch. I'm excited. We will check out Margaret the next time we are with Brandon.
Sounds great.
Well, Brandon, a valiant effort, but nonetheless, you did lose the game. So please end the episode with that line that's written there.
With that line, all right. Come and dream with us as you embark on this journey of our new show. What are you, 12?
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.